Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to talk about an announcement that came a couple hours ago, and that is that the live-action Beast Wars movie, which has been rumored for a while now, has officially been announced, and it has also been given a synopsis. Now, this is not good, unfortunately. This kind of ruins a lot of the dynamic that Beast Wars had, and I'm not necessarily saying that you can't have a good movie in this type of a setting, but this feels like the setting feels like this should be Bumblebee 2. This shouldn't be Beast Wars, but we're going to go into this. So the official title is Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. This is supposed to take place in terms of a time frame. This is supposed to take place in 1994. That is 7 years after Bumblebee is supposed to take place, which took place in 1997. They also said that this film is going to have a much larger budget than the previous movie, which was Bumblebee, because they wanted to ramp things up again. And apparently, Generation 1 Optimus is going to be the main character of the film, and they're going to take elements from Beast Wars and not actually adapt the full story, which is very, very disappointing. Now, the other thing is this is being directed by Stephen Capel Jr., who really his only other notable AAA film credit is Creed 2. And he's never really handled anything with what I would assume is the budget for this film, because I would assume this film has a budget that's probably somewhere in the 200 million range or more. And the fact that they're having this guy handle this is kind of disheartening, even though he made a film that in Creed 2 that did make a lot of money. They also confirmed that Peter Cullen will be coming back to voice Optimus Prime, and I'm going to read the official synopsis of this before I dig into this fucking thing. Returning to the action and spectacle that first captured moviegoers around the world 14 years ago with the original Transformers, Transformers: Rise of the Beasts will take audiences on a 90s globe-trotting adventure and introduce the Maximals, Predacons, and Terrorcons to the existing battle on Earth between Autobots and Decepticons. And specifically in the interview that they confirmed that this would take place in 1994. It is going to take place in Brooklyn, New York City, and Peru, even though Brooklyn is technically a borough of New York City. I guess they say New York, so maybe New York State, and Peru. And they also said specifically they were actually filming at Machu Picchu, which definitely had to have cost a buttload of money to do that. Now, here's the other thing, is that this whole premise that they've thought up here to incorporate the Beast Wars stuff doesn't work. I think if you were going to do this, I think what you should have done is you should have kept on the Bumblebee timeline, and you should have rebooted the Transformers franchise through that. Don't bring in any of the Beast Wars elements, because they don't really make sense if they're not in the reason why Beast Wars exists is because of the setting. Okay, so if you change the setting, then you kind of ruin you ruin the balancing that they had there. Because Beast Wars did the one thing that I have said for years should be done to the Transformers franchise. They removed the humans from the equation. Nobody gives a shit about human characters in a Transformers movie. Nobody cares. If you actually give a shit about the humans in a Transformers movie, then you don't care about Transformers at all. Because nobody cares about those characters. Maybe Spike, maybe from the original, maybe Spike, but he's really the human characters were there in the original to give the audience some sort of a view into these robots, which were larger than life and the size of vehicles. But now, when you went to Beast Wars, which was the mid-90s, then you took the turn of no, instead of just making, the Autobots and Decepticons, these cool robots that transform and stuff, we're actually going to give them personalities and characters and make them like people. Because that's what that show did, and that's why it went on for as long as it did. And I can't really say that any of those seasons I disliked, and I have rewatched them. The visuals, I will admit, have not aged particularly well, let's put it that way, but the storytelling is still intact and it's still there, and I like the storytelling. The other thing is that Beast Wars didn't treat its audience like children, even though a lot of its audience was children. You can say that for a lot of programming at that time, too. You had stuff like Batman, the animated series. There were a lot more harder edge type of cartoons and stuff that was made for kids that wasn't necessarily treating them like kids. And the main difference is that this show actually had character development and character death, because that's the other thing too, is that other than the 1986 movie, which was a fucking bloodbath, um, Transformers didn't really delve very deeply into character death, even though they were supposed to be fighting a war. In this case, there are quite a few character deaths over the course of the 3 seasons, and a lot of them are characters that we've really liked. Dinobot's death is really kind of the one that I think I would highlight the most because of the way that he went out. But there were other deaths in that too, and I'm not going to give too many of them away for people that haven't. I mean, if you want to go back and watch the show, I guess, but it was an amazing show from a storytelling standpoint, and I would love to see it with updated graphics to make it look a little bit better. Even if you just kept the same dialogue and just did what they do with games and just changed the graphics a little bit, I would love to see something like that. But from what they're doing here, it looks like they're trying to weave this into the Bumblebee universe, because there was a very big spike in popularity when they had the intro to Bumblebee, where you got to see like all the Gen 1 Transformers and stuff like that, which is really probably what the first movie should have been. And this is the result of that. But like I said, this should be Bumblebee 2, or you should title it something else and have Bumblebee be, the precursor to that. That's the prequel to the main one, or the setup film for the main one in the Bumblebee universe, because they've also said that they wanted to do a sequel to Bumblebee. And as far as I was aware, that was a separate film from the Beast Wars film. But that's the other problem too, is that now that you've removed these robots and you're basing it more on these other human characters, which they list 2 human characters. Now, the 2 human characters, one is an archaeologist, and who gets all of her work apparently. Apparently, she gets all of her work claimed by her boss, so she never gets any credit for anything, and yada yada yada. Okay, so meant to be somewhat sympathetic, but again, I don't care. And the other one is supposed to be an electronics expert who's ex-military and lives in Brooklyn. Again, 2 characters that I understand why they might be in like a normal Transformers movie where there's a lot of people and stuff around, but I don't see why you need that for a Beast Wars movie. And to be honest, you really don't. Beast Wars was the perfect version of Transformers to me, and the reason is because it didn't have fucking people. I don't care about people. I care about the damn robots. As much as that sounds weird, in a Transformers movie, that's all you give a shit about, is you give a shit about the robots. That's why Optimus Prime is such a popular character, because he worked for that universe and he actually had character and thought and everything like that. And by the end of it, they really went very like hardcore with it. I mean, like I said, they did do a lot of killing in that movie that came out in the Transformers the movie from 1986. But the early seasons of the show did not have, as far as I'm aware, I don't think they had character death until after that. And then they started doing stuff where they would kill people off and do stuff. So they got a little bit more hardcore as it went on. But then when you got into the 90s, then you got into this series. And the other thing is they could introduce new Transformers. There was stuff that was in the plot that was designed to continue to make the series interesting, and it satisfied Hasbro because they could get more toys out of it. So, in addition to that, it was the idea like, okay, well, you can only look at so many different kinds of cars, but there are millions of different kinds of animals, extinct and not. And that's why it was so cool, because it was kind of like the Predacons were all supposed to be like insects and dinosaurs and lizards and stuff like that. A lot of cold-blooded, like unemotional animals. And then the Maximals were all mammals. You had a rat, a rhino, a gorilla. God, why am I forgetting some of the other ones? I mean, there was a tiger, there was a hawk, which I guess, I mean, technically it's a bird, it's a fowl, but it's still a warm-blooded animal. They had so many different animals that they could pick from, and that they were able to make work. And the animals, a lot of the times, kind of mirrored the personalities of the robots that they were disguised as, or they mirrored the animals themselves. The personality of the animal mirrored the personality of the robot that they were bound with. So, Cheetor was a hothead. He would run out ahead of everybody else. Rhinox was kind of this slow, lumbering guy. Optimus Prime is this. the leader who, I guess gorilla makes sense. Rat Trap was kind of this sniveling little guy. He always talked with like the Ratso, freaking, the Dustin Hoffman from Midnight Cowboy, the Ratso tone and tendencies. So I loved that series so much, and a lot of it had to do with the time frame that it was set in, because when they crash land on what is prehistoric Earth, there's no people around. They can't have people in the story. They can only have cavemen, which they do come into the story on occasion, but that's all they have. They don't have anything else. They just have animals and the Decepticons, and that's it, and each other. And that's why it was so good, is that you could actually develop those characters and grow to love those characters and make them so different without having to worry about balancing them out with humans. And that's the problem that I see here, is that you can't do Beast Wars with people. But this has been kind of a rant on this, but I'm not gonna keep going, because I'm kind of just saying the same thing over and over again. But I want to know what you think. Are you excited for this movie? Are you not excited for this movie? Do you think that this could still be a somewhat accurate, or not accurate, but somewhat entertaining version of Beast Wars? Or do you think that this is kind of like a pseudo film, and like they're just really just taking the name and a couple of likenesses and stuff and sticking them in? Put your thoughts in the comments below. As usual, I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?